In this series of comparing stories, I mostly compare video games and books, but as someone with a special interest in Disney Channel's Descendants, I also have to compare those movies to books. We left off in the series with Return to the Isle of the Lost and Wicked World, where the VKs had just gotten their parents' talismans and family jewels, and then the Descendants storyline took a left turn, just as I said it would. Melissa de la Cruz put out a third Isle of the Lost book, one that is meant to follow Return to the Isle of the Lost and lead into Descendants 2. I never could find out exactly why the storyline changed from the second book and Wicked World. Kristen Chenoweth had been excited to reprise her role as Maleficent, but none of the VK's parents ended up reprising their roles. There is a serious lack of VK parents in Descendants 2. Only Ursula is hinted at, voiced by Whoopi Goldberg. Audrey is also lacking, but that's due to the role she landed in Charmed. However, Melissa de la Cruz did a pretty good job in smoothing the storylines out by writing her third Isle of the Lost book. Rise of the Isle of the Lost introduces Uma, a new character who supposedly grew up with Mal too. She lives on the opposite side of the Isle from the original VKs and goes to a different school too. There was a time when Mal hung out with Uma during the summers between school years, but it ended the summer after the girls turned 10. We all know that Mal is rotten to the core, but Uma is a menace too. The girls loved running around the docks pulling pranks. One summer day, their pranks went wrong when they tried to pull one on Corella DeVille. Mal slipped on the slick gunk meant for Corella and slid on toward the end of the docks. Uma found this funny, of course, and fell to her knees laughing. But Mal still couldn't swim, and she wasn't laughing. Uma wasn't anymore either when things looked dire and she thought Mal might have fallen into the dream. When she kneels over the end of the dock to look for her, Mal sneaks up behind her and dumps a bucket of shrimp over her head, granting Uma the nickname of Shrimpy. That was the end of their friendship. Now, Uma simply wants her revenge on Mal. Return to the Isle of the Lost moves on from the past and into the beginning and the ending of Descendants 1 in Uma's point of view. We see her watching Mal and her crew leaving the Isle. We feel her anger towards Mal for getting chosen to go to Ordon. And then we see her in Curl Up and Die, where she watches Mal with the magic wand on TV while Dizzy, introduced in Descendants 2, sweeps up behind her. When Uma sees the barrier come down, she runs out to the shore with all the rest of the villains. The sea is their way off the island. Only the barrier closes just as they reach it. Uma is disappointed, of course, incredibly angry, but she's motivated, too, to find a way off the isle. Her first mission on the way off the isle is to form a pirate crew. After all, friends don't let friends stay on the Isle of the Lost. Mal isn't the only one who lost her childhood friends. Jay used to run with Harry and Gil. These sons of Captain Hook and Gaston aren't the villain's only kids. Harry has two sisters, mentioned in the previous books, Harriet and CJ. CJ is also mentioned in Wicked World. They both attend Dragon Hall, while Harry goes to the same school as Uma, the Serpent Preparatory School for the Education of Miscreants. Gil attends Dragon Hall with his brothers, twins Gaston Jr. and Gaston III. Gil is the only one not a Gaston. Jay isn't the only one Gil fell away from. He kind of stopped hanging out with Harry and Uma as the children grew up, but Harry never fell away from Uma. He does all her dirty bidding, just as Mal points out in Descendants 2. He's the perfect crew member to be Uma's first mate, and so they make a bet when she tries to get a ship to find something magical. It's luck that Captain Hook is giving a ship away. He can't just give it to his son. Harry has to earn it. And so Uma and Harry enter the competition for the ship against one another. Uma takes Harry's emotional support hook and makes a deal with him. She'll give it back if one of them can win the competition, and if she wins, Harry will be her first mate. Harry agrees, and so they race. Of course, Uma and Harry are villains' kids, and of course they cheat. Harry hops from raceboat to raceboat until he's riding on the lead boat. Uma lassos her dinky little raft to a goblin speedboat and gets pulled up to the front. She manages to get the goblins off the speedboat and take command of it herself, taking the win. Harry gets his hook back. Harry is her first mate, and now Uma needs to find the rest of her crew. Desiree, Jonas, Bonnie, and Gonzo all join Uma on her crew. We see more than just these 4 later on in the movie and her crew. And of course, the crew is completed with Gil's brawn. Gil is the only non-pirate of the crew, but he misses Uma and Harry. He wants to be their friend again. Besides, he's useful. Uma learns of a magical item from Oradon that's made its way into the waters of the Isle. Every villain's sibling and goblin are looking for it, but Uma knows the only way to find it. To find a magical artifact that has been on the Isle. There are only 2 people who know where this item is, Yensid and his intern who came to the Isle with him, Sophie. Sophie assists Yensid in his classes. She's not a student of his, she's not a teenager like these villain kids, and yet she agrees to go on a date with Gil when he tells her Uma knows where a magical item is. Gil seems to pride himself on being a ladies' man, but we don't see that in the movies, not D2 or D3. In D3, we see him bonding with Jay, who really is the ladies' man. But Gil takes Sophie to Uma's fish and chip shop because Uma doesn't know where a magical item is. She needs to. Gil gets bored of Sophie and her cat pictures quickly and asks Uma to hurry up and get the information out of her. Uma discovers that Sophie is looking for Yen Sid's sorcerer's hat. Uma does happen to know where that is. When she took Gil hat shopping earlier, she'd seen him buy it. So she threatens the hat over a fire until Sophie relents and tells her where to find the magical item. The Isle of the Doomed. The magical item that all the villains are looking for was not lost by a VK, but by an AK. During the Seaside Festival, the beginning of the annual All-Kingdom celebration of Ordon, one of the mermaids of King Triton's kingdom tells Mal about Ursula's necklace, how it shattered into hundreds of pieces and is kept on the Isle of the Lost. The Seaside Festival is cut short by a sudden storm. It isn't until the VKs get back to Auradon Prep with Ben that they find out freshman Arabella stole her grandfather's trident. Arabella started the storm with King Triton's trident and then lost it at sea in the Isle of the Lost when the barrier opened for a split second. Mal is almost relieved. She thought her talisman had started the storm. Remember those? The VK's talismans from Return to the Isle of the Lost? After the storm, they finally turn them in to Fairy Godmother, who uses her magic to destroy them, even as Fairy Godmother is the one who banned magic in the first place. We never do hear anything about the VK's jewels from Wicked World. Mal agrees to help Arabella find the trident because Evie has kind of taken her under her wing. Evie is a sweet girl and a supportive friend, but she is kind of hard on Mal about the usage of her spells and magic. Even as Evie uses her magic mirror to find the trident, the VKs, well, mostly Carlos, figure out the trident is just on the edge of the barrier near the Isle of the Doomed. They know they have to go back to the Isle of the Lost to retrieve it. It isn't even that they don't want Arabella to get in trouble. They know Uma is after the trident too. Ben isn't at Auradon Prep at the moment. Lonnie whisked him off to settle a silly border dispute between Northern Y and Agrabah. So when Mal tries to get in touch with him about borrowing a boat, she can't reach him. So she decides they simply have to steal one. The kids sneak into the harbor at night, Mal using a spell to get them inside. Jay is a little too excited about the mission. He jokes about stealing the royal yacht, which will be used later in the movie for Ben's cotillion. Carlos is the one to suggest they steal the royal speedboat instead. Mal uses another spell to start the boat. Evie continues to grow upset about Mal's spell usage. She tells her that should be the last one of the night, but Mal still needs to spell the barrier open and the trident to the surface. But then they're almost caught by someone else who is using magic. Fairy Godmother is using her wand to clean up the yacht club. The wand is supposed to be in the museum with Evie's magic mirror and Mal's spell book. But as hard as everyone is on Mal for using magic, they all still use it too. Fairy Godmother does catch the 4 VKs and drives them back to school. Jane catches them on the way to her mom's office and asks Carlos what's wrong. He tells her the truth. They're about to be expelled from the school and sent back to the Isle. He asks her to help them. And because Jane is already smitten with Carlos and he feels the same, she follows through. Jane calls Merlin to get Ben back home from Northern Y, where he settled the dispute by building a great door in the Great Wall, and he bursts into Fairy Godmother's office just before she can expel them. Ben tells Fairy Godmother they had permission to take his boat because he sent them on a secret mission. Because Ben trusts Mal and knows she wouldn't steal without a good reason. She explains everything to him, and he agrees to get the VKs to the Isle for the trident before Uma can get it. But Uma still has to get Ursula's necklace first. Uma and her crew reach the Isle of the Doomed after a harrowing sea journey to find where Yin Sid buried the treasure. Sophie told them there would be a trail to follow. Harry is the one to find the first piece of the trail, a crescent moon carved into a tree trunk. Then Uma finds a sun carved into a stone, and they find a star next. The same markings on Yin Sid's hat. This is his trial. The trial leads them through the forest of the Isle of the Doomed until they find words marked on the ground. Tops et scram X. Gil is the only one to figure it out. X marks the spot. Then they try first to dig on the X on the ground, but it isn't where the treasure is buried. Harry continues looking until he finds two trees that intercross into an X. They dig just under the shadow of the X, and Harry falls in. It's an underground lagoon, and Harry falls right into the water. At least he can swim, but he does hear a frighteningly familiar sound. Tick-tock. He closes his eyes and waits for the crocodile to bite into him, but it never does. It's an old alarm clock and a pile of junk. Uma, Gil, and the crew find Harry and the pile of junk. Harry finds the treasure. Gil finds the skull. Even as Uma tells him not to touch it, a butterfly flies from its eyes, and then the skeletons attack. There is no magic on the Isle of the Lost. How are these skeletons attacking him? Who did these skeletons used to be? It isn't magic, it's a booby trap set up by Yin Sid. The skeletons hang from wires on the cavern ceiling, and the pirates cut through them. It isn't the only booby trap. A volley of arrows shoot at them. Yin Sid really doesn't want anyone to get this treasure. They dodge the arrows and wait them out. When Uma moves to go forward, she steps on a trigger. The last booby trap. The underground lagoon is collapsing. Does Yin Sid want them dead? They make it out of the lagoon, the treasure tucked safely under Harry's arm. Uma opens it to find the pieces of Ursula's necklace. Now they just need to put them together. It's a hard task, and it's only Gil who is patient enough for it. When they realize exactly one piece is missing, it's Gil who knows where it is. He isn't just brawn like Gaston. Uma wears a locket around her neck. She has this entire time. Inside is all Ursula has left, the last piece of the necklace. Uma glues it in, and the necklace leads them to the trident. Mal and her crew get to the border of the isle just as Uma dives down for the trident. Evie watches on her magic mirror as Uma takes the trident in hand. But Mal knows a spell that turns them back to the top of the hour. Only those with villain blood are aware when it happens. The trident is no longer in Uma's hand, but she remembers. Mal spells a hole in the barrier, opening the isle to magic for a few minutes. She spells the trident towards her. Only Uma feels the magic and uses it to pull the trident towards her. Just when it's about to be in her hands, Mal's magic wins. Uma is only left with Mal's left-hand glove. The power of the trident knocks two people into the ocean, Evie, who can't swim, and Gil, who probably can. Mal screams out spells to bring Evie back to her, but it's Jay that pulls her back to the boat with a life ring. Uma dives into the water after Gil. The trident makes it back to Auradon safely. The next morning, Ben leaves it in the not-so-trusting hands of Arabella to return to her grandfather, and then he tells the girls that the magic mirror and spellbook belong in the museum. Evie is upset about this. She doesn't like Mal using her magic, but she doesn't want to give hers up. Still, she gives it to Ben while Mal tells him the spellbook is in her room. Auradon is safe now. Ben and the VKs are back at school. Jane makes the cheerleading team thanks to Carlos's help with her audition. Jay makes the roar team thanks to the help of Lonnie's older brother. And Ben empties out Mal's art class of students only to fill it with her favorite flowers, black dahlias and bat orchids. He asks her to go to Cotillion with him and be his official lady. Mal is nervous. She's never had any title other than Mal the Worst, but she says yes. And she asks Evie to make her look like a princess. Even as everybody calls Mal princess, she is not one. And Uma is ready to make sure of that. Back on the isle, she knows it was Mal who kept her from the trident, and she's ready for her revenge. After all, this isn't where her story ends.
Don't scare you. That's my speciality.
Like, it didn't know what it was saying. It
Oh,
didn't understand.
yeah.
Oh, Mal. you're still gonna have to go through Harry Hook and his wharf rats.
Carlos, this is Dude. He's the campus mutt.
He doesn't look like a vicious rabid pack animal. Jeez. You're a good boy, aren't you? You're a good boy.
I guess you guys have it pretty rough on the island.
Yeah. Let's just say we don't get a lot of belly rubs.
Good boy. I mean, you're a good runner. You're fast, you know.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.